Here is Lowell Green.
Oh, thanks a lot, John. I mean, I'm in retirement or semi-retirement here. I'm 84 years old. I should be allowed to live life a little more luxuriously, a little more rest. But well, thanks to you. I'm blaming you. I mean, I don't have Harper to blame, so I'm going to blame John Milkey, right?
Sure.
We started a firestorm yesterday.
Yeah, we did.
Tougher.
Yeah, we did.
I'm going to get into that in a moment or two. The firestorm coming up, folks. But just before that, we've got to talk about the latest developments concerning the vaccine. Britain has just approved it. Vaccinations will start in Britain as early as this Friday or certainly this weekend. It is expected that within a week to 10 days, all of the residents of long-term care homes in Britain will have been vaccinated and thus will be able to move about. They will be able to have visitors. They will be able to go to Christmas parties, etc., etc. While, of course, residents of our long-term care will be pretty well isolated, cooped up, some people say jailed, for God knows how long. And I have a couple of questions. I know that there are a lot of you people out there who think, you know what, we really don't need vaccines here. What the hell? We'll continue wearing the mask for the rest of our lives, et cetera, et cetera. But I have a couple of questions. First of all, we have no idea when we're going to get the vaccines, if we're going to get vaccines. If we do get vaccines, when will those vaccines arrive? And also, very important, what kind of vaccines are they? As we've pointed out before, some of the vaccines require minus 70, some require minus 20, et cetera, et cetera. So it'd be a good idea to know how many are coming in, how many of each kind, so that we can buy the freezers that are necessary, et cetera, to say nothing of locations where we are going to vaccinate people. Now, in that regard, pardon me, in that regard, I've been doing a lot of thinking about this, John. It seems to me that the cities in our country have got a great responsibility, but let's deal with the city of Ottawa. I believe that the city of Ottawa has a responsibility to select the sites, to plan to make sure that when the vaccines arrive here, it's all very well, you can leave it up to the province, or you can leave it up to the baby Jesus, or you can leave it up to whomever you wish. But surely there is a civic responsibility. I'd like to know, for example, if you, Mr. Mayor, Jim Watson, and members of City Council, rather than debating, how many feathers it would take to tip over whatever, which is what you're usually doing, or how many angels can dance on the head of a pin, which is fairly normal discussion at City Hall, that maybe you have had the time to sign a contract with whoever is responsible for Canadian Tire Place. I would think, for example, that Canadian Tire Place would be an ideal spot. We could probably locate, what, John, 6, 7, maybe more locations in there, all around the circle.
I mean, one in each parking lot, certainly.
Lots of parking there. I for sure we could establish 5, 6, perhaps even 7 sites to be vaccinated right there at Canadian Tire Place. How about now in Britain? The reason I raise this is that in Britain they're going to use a lot of the major stadiums. They're going to have major sites at the stadiums. There's free parking in a lot of them, et cetera, et cetera. And in many stadiums, they're going to set up perhaps as many as a dozen different sites so that people can get in there, get their shots, and get the hell out. So I'm asking about Canadian Tire Place. The arrangement's been made? I would expect so, Mr. Mayor. How about Lansdowne Park? It would seem to me that we could set up lots of sites at Lansdowne Park. Where else have we got? Well, we've got libraries. We've got a number of libraries, about 30 some odd libraries. Some of them surely could be used as sites. My goodness, we got all sorts of empty stores. Anybody sign any leases or contracts or deals with the stores? We lots of those. Something else I'm thinking maybe is impractical. I'm just making some suggestions. I mean, I'm not a member of City Council. I'm not that bright, okay? I'm just a little guy sitting out here suggesting that maybe members of council, including the mayor, should do a little work on this. I know it's a rather novel idea that they would do so anyway. What about establishing maybe a few sites in some of the LRT stations? God knows not that many people using LRT these days. It would be really nice if people could get a shot coming and going from work on the LRT. Just an idea. It would seem to me, and I mean, John, it was you who suggested, and I thought it was a great idea. If the city can figure out how to locate so-called safe injection sites, maybe we could establish a few vaccination sites.
You got to think, right?
But you have another theory, because everybody says that we want to get back to normal as quickly as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody says that.
Mm-hmm.
They claim that. And yet nobody seems in a hurry to do that. I mean, we have the federal government that diddled and dawdled and fooled around with China. By the way, what is the prime minister's fascination with China anyway? So we fooled around with China, trying to apparently strike some sort of a deal to buy the vaccine from them. I mean, why not buy it from China? I mean, it was China that gave me the disease in the first place. So why not reward them with a few $1 billion and buy the vaccine? But anyhow, it didn't work out. The Chinese, I guess, said, to hell with you guys, bugger off. So we were a little bit fairly late, I guess, in ordering vaccines elsewhere. So we still don't know, the old story, where, when, et cetera, et cetera. But so the federal government's not in a hurry. Provincial government, I must say this about Ford, seems to be in a bit of a hurry. I mean, he's been screaming bloody murder. Tell us how many are coming, when, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't know. A lot of people in the province don't seem in a big hurry to get rid of COVID. I mean, the only hope we've got of getting rid of COVID is the vaccine. Anybody with a brain, well, maybe in a half a brain or a quarter of a brain knows that. I mean, we've said this before, John. Everybody knows it. COVID-19 is not going to go away on its own. Very clearly, it's not. Ask them out in Alberta. What a hell of a time they're having out there. So very clearly, the only answer we've got is the vaccine. The sooner, the better. The more people we can get vaccinated, the quicker. I mean, the faster we'll be able to get back to normal. It's only common sense, okay? But as I say, they don't seem in a hurry in the city. I you know what? I doubt very much if the city has even thought about locating sites. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I've been wrong, I don't know, 4 or 5 times in the last 60 years, maybe 3 times. But I don't think the city has done anything. But it surely to God, it should. But for example, Mr. Mayor, please tell me, who is in charge of COVID vaccinations from the city? Who's the point man? Do you have a point man? How about a point woman? I don't know. You can have them intersex or whatever. I don't care what sex they are. If they're any sex at all. Like who is going to be in charge? Who's going to be the person? The people. Who's going to be the person? I just don't understand what's going on here. John, you have a theory of why everybody says they want to get rid of COVID, but nobody seems in a hurry. What's your theory? Now, this is, folks, this is a very interesting theory.
Yeah,
John.
This is the
I'm pinning it to it, John.
This is the kind of thing that we should start a website and start this theory. But I'm thinking maybe it's all a plot, Lowell. That if we can keep Canadian snowbirds at home for this winter, so they're not spending their money, in Florida and Arizona, maybe they'll have to spend their money here, and then we've got a chance to maybe recoup some of the money we spent on CERB. I'm just throwing it out there.
Well, actually, your theory makes more sense than a lot of others that I'm reading these days.
That's just
now,
sad.
I just want to go through a few numbers here. We may, if we're lucky, perhaps, maybe, if we're really, really lucky, we may get 3 million doses by March. That's if we're lucky. That's about 8% of Canada's population, which means that by the end of March, even if we really get lucky and we get this 3 million doses, by the end of March, when almost everybody else in every other nation has been pretty well finished getting the vaccination, we may have a situation where 8% of our people are vaccinated, which means, let me do the math. That means 92% of the population will not be vaccinated. So, I mean, very clearly, we would have a long way to go before we could take our masks off, okay? Before we could open our stores. You have some texts, some emails coming in, John. No doubt to take issue with you.
Nobody's taking issue with me yet, but the day is young. Howard on Twitch says, Lowell, the Prime Minister's procurement person was on the news the other day saying we already had X amounts of coolers for the vaccines already and 92 more coming in soon. How is this possible when we have no idea when we're getting the vaccines and from what manufacturer? That's Howard on Twitch.
Yeah, well, there, Howard, you got a brain there, sir. Congratulations.
Locations being suggested for possible vaccination sites: the Shaw Center, Lansdowne Park has been mentioned a couple of times. I mean, pretty much anywhere with a football field, I would think. Minto Field.
As I say, there's lots of empty stores. In all probability, you could set up shop there and, maybe, I don't know, give the landlord a couple of dollars or nothing. I don't know. There's any number of plans, but the point is that I don't think we're doing any civic planning here. So I think one day, maybe, if we're lucky, we may get a few COVID vaccines and we won't know what the hell to do with them. Now, we will know, like if you're a junkie, we'll know where to send you for a so-called safe injection. But if you're a person that would like to be saved from COVID, well, too bad. And while I'm at it, and I am going to get into the firestorm that you and I stirred up yesterday, but I have to say this, okay? I don't like saying it, but I'm going to. Retired General Rick Hillier is a hero of mine. I've gone through that many times. But I have to say I was a little bit disappointed in him last night when he made a kind of excuse for the slow delivery of vaccines up here in Canada, claiming that, quote, the delay would give us more time to get it right. I understand what you're saying. But, I mean, Rick, are you saying that the Brits will have inoculated half their population, maybe more? The European nation will have inoculated maybe 3/4, the United States 3/4, etc. by the time we get our first vaccine? Are you saying that they won't get it right, that somehow or other we couldn't pioneer this ourselves? I don't understand this. I mean, I don't understand why anybody would give the Prime Minister and this government in any way an out on this. Let's face it. Let's be very honest here. The faster we can get people vaccinated, the faster we can get back to normal life. The faster that we can once again visit our loved ones in long-term care. The faster that our businesses, our restaurants and bars can fully open. The faster that we can get to parties, Christmas parties, etc., etc. It all depends on how fast we can get the vaccine. And don't tell me that we don't have the expertise in this country to do it. If they can do it in Britain, if they can do it in France, if they can do it in Spain, if they can do it in Germany, if they can do it in Belgium, if they can do it in the United States, if they can do it in Brazil, if they can do it in Mexico, God damn it, we can do it here. But we got to have the vaccines. Don't give me excuses. Give me the vaccine. Unbelievable. Rick, I'm going to try and get in touch with you tonight and try and straighten you out a little bit on this. Don't give this Prime Minister any, they keep saying, well, we'll have vaccinations by the end of March. By the end of March, the way things are going now, most of the rest of the world will be pretty well finished. I mean, unacceptable. I have to take a little bit of a break here from my good friends at Shields. I keep talking about Shields. A lot of people are taking me at my word. People are coming into Shields, thank you very much, and saying, Lowell sent me. Good. Do the same thing with Centennial Glass. If you've heard one of my commercials, if you heard me urging you to buy local, when you go in, say, hey, listen, I was listening to Lowell, or Lowell tells me, or Lowell, I heard Lowell say this, or whatever. Just let them know, okay? Because that way, maybe they'll continue to sponsor and we can continue to stay on the air. So there's a little method to my madness here. But seriously, I'm going to tell you, I would not talk about Shields or Centennial Glass or anybody if I didn't believe in them. If I didn't do business with them myself, I would not talk about them. I've had many opportunities with other businesses, some of which I've gladly endorsed, a couple of which I wish I had not, and I stopped. If I get complaints, I'll check it out. Any validity to it, and it's not corrected, I drop them. I haven't had a complaint in, I don't think, 20 years about Centennial, and I've had no complaints about Shields. All I'm hearing about Shields is, what a great place this is. Service is just wonderful. Shields.ca. Check them out. Folks, local. Centennial is local. Shields is local. Why give your business to Brazil? Why shop at a big box store when you can get the same deal, maybe better, faster, from a local dealer? Why? I don't understand this. Why jam the parking lot of a big box store when you can pick up the phone, go to the computer, and book shields.ca and see what they've got and book right there. And they'll have it in your house probably 2 or 3 days. All right. Now, the firestorm. Oy. John, as you know, yesterday, somebody sent us a text during the show, which the text claimed that, quote, 87,000 doctors had signed a petition claiming that vaccinations were too dangerous to be administered and should never be administered. This claim was featured on a website called Bitchute. You went to work, you did some research, and you found that Bitchute is a hate-filled site, usually banned on most platforms. I did some research myself. I was shocked at what I saw here. Now, it's a site that welcomes all comment, no question about it. And some of the comment, I suppose, is not that offensive. But it welcomes and, in fact, promotes. And I'm not the only one who says this. Many newspapers, many reporters, many journalists, many others have said the same thing, that they promote hate, they promote terrorism, they promote racism. They feature the neo-Nazis love them, use the site all of the time. I personally saw sites that advocated the murder of Jews, that the only good Jew is a piece of soap. I'm sorry, that's what it says. And worse. And worse. I went on Facebook and talked about this. You would not believe the number of people who replied mad as hell at me. You're talking about censorship and so forth. It was amazing, John. One of the things that amazed me is that a lot of these people who apparently, I had never heard of Bitchute before. Had you ever heard of Bitchute before?
Not until it was brought up yesterday, but I went looking. And anytime anybody posts anything on a site that I don't recognize, my first question is, what is this site? Who owns it? Who runs it? So that's what I did yesterday with Bitchute.
I'm surprised at the number of people in this city, in this area, who are quite familiar with Bitchute and apparently watch it all of the time. Apparently the fact that they recommend or host websites calling for the murder of Jews and blacks and gays, very common, neo-Nazis. And yet people are writing me and they're mad as hell. I don't believe in censorship. You always say you don't believe in censorship, etc., etc. I don't believe in censorship. I believe that everybody should be allowed. If you want to advocate the murder of Jews, I deplore it. I hate it, but I don't want censorship. But I'm going to tell you this: many of those same people who are mad because they say we should not be censoring want to censor me. They're saying they should be allowed to go, but you should not be allowed to complain about them. That's the kind of thinking that goes on here. For the first time, I've had a number of people, including people making death threats on Facebook, John, over the years. And I've blocked a couple, maybe in 3 or 4 years, but I blocked about 5 yesterday. I just couldn't put up with it. I just couldn't have put up. You know what? And I said this, if you think that there's nothing wrong with a website that hosts comments about killing Jews and blacks and gays, you're not my friend. I don't want you I don't want you on my page. And I blocked them, about 4 or 5. So I was shocked. There's no question about it that so many people familiar with it and try to make excuses for it. The point I guess one of the points I'm trying to make here is that a good deal, what I'm finding here is that a good deal of the anti-vax, and to a degree, not all, but a lot of the anti-mask, etc. stuff is coming from some of these strange websites. Now, in the case of Bitchute, we know the founder, some guy by the name of Ron Varley, I think it is, in Britain. Apparently he's the founder. But who runs it now, I don't know. But more to the point, and you have alluded to this, John, who pays for this? And what is the real purpose here? Does this have anything to do with foreign governments? Because these kinds of sites, they spread fear, they spread hate, they spread misinformation, all of which harms a country's economy. The longer we don't have vaccinations here, the more people who don't wear a mask, the longer we're going to have COVID, which means the longer our businesses will be shut down. So the more fear, the more confusion that these websites and others can create, the more it damages our economy. Who wants to do that? Well, very clearly, there's some other nations. China, I don't know. Russia, interestingly enough, there's a fair amount of Russian content on Bitchute. I went through a number of things, and there's one guy there. This guy is crazy. I see him quite often. Marshall Jones or Mitchell Jones. This guy is unbelievable what he is saying here. He is blaming all of COVID, by the way, on the Jews, or most of it anyway. So this is the kind of stuff that's going on. So I just want to alert you all, okay? There's a lot of information out there, misinformation. Some of it is purely innocent, local people really worried about vaccines. I can understand that. But a lot of it is with an ulterior motive to disrupt the economy. I don't know, but certainly that's one of the effects of it. So I just wanted to alert you folks. If you think that you should be allowed to advocate the murder of Jews and blacks, okay, otherwise would be censorship, which I don't agree with. But if you can do that, then I should be able to criticize, shouldn't I? I mean, it can't just have censorship for me and not for the others, right? On a different topic, I spent a fair bit of time yesterday asking people if anti-vaxxers and anti-maskers should volunteer to go to the back of the treatment bus. If they get sick and they have been parading around without masks or without distancing, et cetera, flagrantly, flaunting the rules and regulations, if they get sick, should they voluntarily move to the back of the treatment bus? If the hospitals become very overcrowded, as they are right now in Toronto, apparently, and particularly in Alberta, okay, if you deliberately, one of the things in Alberta, you may recall, I guess it was maybe a weekend ago, John, you've got a phone call here. Let's take a phone call. Yes, you're on the air. What's your point of view here, please?
It was on a different topic because you mentioned this love affair between Canada and China, Lowell.
Yes.
Well, I was wondering, I mean, since Trudeau's been in power, he gave 16 tons of medical supply. Apparently we're getting it back, but we never did.
To China, yes. Mm-hmm.
We invested billions with combined research with China, with multitude of Canadian universities, where apparently we have no technologies to do the research, but we were doing it. And also we bought, I think, was close to $1 billion of medical supplies that was not even met our Canadian standards at twice the price because we gave 16 tons. What I don't understand is how come China is not being criticized for horrible human rights, forced abortion, right? They contribute to 1/3 of the world's pollution, and they have over 3 million people in modern slavery. They even have, and it's been reported, re-educational camps for Muslims. So all these double talk, hypocritical investment. I mean, the fact that we have a FIBA agreement with China and is buying a mine up north, which is claiming our north, should be alarming. Would you agree?
I agree. Well, it's not. I don't think it's the country. It seems to be Justin Trudeau's fascination with China, and as evidenced once again by the fact that we tried to negotiate with China for a vaccine up until apparently sometime in June or maybe May. I'm not sure. It finally fell through. After which, finally, we got around to ordering vaccines otherwise. But why were we, a good question, why were we negotiating with China in the first place? But let me give you some more evidence here. There was a resolution the other day at the United Nations, and for one of the first times in our history, Canada voted to condemn Israel. Canada has never voted to condemn Syria, never voted to condemn China. I could go on and on and on. But this country, my country, your country, voted to condemn Israel. China, no. I don't understand it. And as I say, why were we negotiating with China to provide us with the vaccine? It was China that gave us the damn disease in the first place. However, sir, you're asking questions. I don't have the answer, but very clearly, still, the majority of Canadians love this guy. They certainly like him enough to vote for him. So what are we to do? I mean, my job is to do the best I can to point out some of what I see as the truth, or point out some of the things that I think needed pointing out. If people don't want to buy it, well, what can we do, right? Yeah, you know what? And I'm glad you called. Any other points here?
Well, yes.
No?
One of my bigger concerns is that why is people enraged or actually talking about it, even calling your show? I don't understand.
I don't know. I don't know. It's somehow or other, Justin Trudeau seems to have grasped the imagination of the bulk of the Canadian population, particularly, I might say, young women. And it's very hard to shake that, as we are seeing, no matter what happens. It's going to be very interesting to see if, in fact, 2 to 1/2 or 3/4 of the rest of the world gets vaccinated before we get any. It's going to be interesting to see if anybody holds Trudeau responsible for that. Thank you for your call, sir. I really appreciate your call. I really do. Thank you. We've got some messages here, some text, John.
We do. We've got a text message from Kitchener-Waterloo. Let me just get to it. Our old friend Mark Mayhew chiming in.
Good, Mark.
Yeah, Mark says, "Hi, Lowell. So great to hear you again. Would love your perspective on this premise. If you openly told your insurance company you were going to drink and drive and not wear a seatbelt because, quote, it was your right, how long would it take them to cancel your coverage? Now think of COVID. Why should people who don't wear masks and don't remain in their bubble get the same medical care that conscientious Canadians do? How is this COVID behavior different from endangering people on the road or with a weapon?"
Very good question, Mark. As always, Mark is a mentor of mine.
Mine too.
Mine too. One of the smartest radio men that I ever met, and he's got a very good point. Of course, I guess the argument that comes back is, well, we don't discriminate against smokers and fat people and so forth. I pointed out that actually, in some ways, we do discriminate against smokers. But that's what many people are suggesting, including a lot of doctors, is that those who openly defy the rules, regulations, should voluntarily agree to go to the back of the line. So far, I haven't had a single person, either on this show or on Facebook, agree to do that. I have many people who are anti-vaxxers, anti-maskers, but none of them so far have agreed, if they get sick, to go to the back of the line. So it's really fascinating. Thank you, Mark. You have another text there?
Carrie says they are jeopardizing the life and health of others, so she's agreeing there. And Sonia says, good question. Why are we negotiating with China, especially with their human rights issues? Plus, they're still holding the two Michaels.
Yeah. Actually, we forget there's at least one other Canadian, and the charges may be legitimate, I know, but he has the death sentence. He seems forgotten, so forgotten that I've sad to say, have forgotten his name as well. What Trudeau's fascination with China is, I don't know. If anybody out there smarter than I has any ideas on this, I'd sure like to hear it. It has really, really puzzled me. But when you stop and think, you're right. We shipped off how many tons of PPE to China? They didn't compensate us in any way for that. We tried to negotiate a deal which would have given China apparently close to $1 billion for vaccines. We were ready to do that. I don't know. We endorse a petition in the United Nations condemning Israel, but we don't have a peep to say about China. Beats the hell out of me. Listen, our time is pretty well up. I'm going to go back to Facebook and probably take a few more insults on this.
You're braver than I am.
All I'm saying is that if Bitchute or any other website is allowed, and should be, and I agree, should be allowed to print whatever they want, I should be allowed to say whatever I want, okay? What's fair is fair. Sauce for the goose, sauce for the gander. Thank you all. We'll be back tomorrow.
Thanks for tuning in to the new No Holds Barred show on BlastTheRadio.com. And get the show on demand with the Lowell Green Podcast. Available on iTunes, Spotify, Google, and more.